Alright everybody, welcome back to Bead Mother Reviews, and today we're taking a look at the one and only Magneto on Throne from XM Studios. This is a statue that, it's a love-hate relationship really with collectors, but this is the statue that really put XM Studios on the map. And they had a couple releases before this guy, like Captain America, and I think Hulk maybe came out before him, but this is the one that made collectors stand up and really take notice of what this little family-owned company out of Singapore was doing. And I've owned this statue since day one. It came out in January 2015. I've never done a video of it before, so we're going to do one today. We're going to count down my 3 favorite things about this guy. We're also going to get into a little bit of a hot button topic with this guy, and we're going to talk about the scale. Is this a 1/4 scale statue? Well, we're going to dive deep into that and find out. And, let's not waste any more time. We're going to get into the review. So let's start right now. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into the countdown here for this piece. And I recently reviewed the Darth Maul from XM Studios. And one of the things that I really liked about that piece was that it didn't have any switch outs. I like that they gave you just sort of one really good display option. But when a statue has awesome switch outs, that can really add a lot to the piece. And this statue, I believe, has some really awesome switch outs. And I put that at number 3 on the countdown. So let's start right here. You've got the 2 helmet accessories that you can put on either side of the throne here. The empty helmet and the Cerebro helmet. And you can actually switch those around if you want. You can move the helmet, his helmet over to here, and put the Cerebro under his hand. And you can see they just sort of clip onto the base with a magnet. And this one, let's go right in there. So you can switch them to either side that you like. Very, very cool option. But the hand that really does it for me on this piece is the levitating Cerebro option. You can see right here, you can slide that on and it really does look like the helmet is floating in midair. But what they've done is they've just connected it to his thumb there. But really at a lot of angles you don't see that connection, so it's really got this very cool levitation effect that I thought, it just kind of blew me away when I first saw it. Now, being Magneto, of course, you're going to get a helmet and a no helmet option for the portraits, so that's no different here. We'll take this helmet, or this portrait off and put this one on here. One of the things I wish they kind of did, as you saw, when you're using this no helmet head, you can put, the 2 helmets beside him. It doesn't really work for when he's wearing the helmet. You kind of have to take this one off. And I wish they had something to go on the other side there. But, minor beef there, because you do get some really cool options. Now, I got to touch on the portraits a little bit here, because XM, in their early days especially, were really heavily criticized for not being able to do portraits, and oh my god, the portraits are terrible, blah, blah, blah. This one here with the helmet, I think, is okay. I really like the helmet itself. The finish, the paint finish looks excellent. The face in there is okay. The part about it I don't really like is the cutout around his face. I think it goes too high up above into his forehead, and kind of makes the helmet look like it's sticking up off his head a little bit. So this one, it's good, but could have been better. And I think if they redid it today, it would be better. But this unmasked portrait, for me, I think is really well done. And still, even though there's about a dozen fan art portraits out there for this statue, this one for me is still the best unmasked portrait for this piece. I love it. He looks mean, he looks angry, he looks focused. You can tell that he is not a dude to be messed with. I really like what they've done with this portrait here. The skin texture, just the wrinkles in his skin, it's really, really well done. I like this one a lot. So I love the switch outs for this piece. I think it adds a lot. I routinely switch them up, and I rarely do that for my statues. I usually stick with one display option, but this one I routinely switch them, so the switch outs really add a lot to this statue. Alright guys, we're going to move on to number 2 on the countdown here, and I absolutely love the design of this statue. I remember when I was in Singapore back in 2017, I chatted with Ben Ong, one of the founding members of XM Studios, specifically about this statue, and he was telling me about how they came up with the design. And you know, everyone knows the Doctor Doom on throne for Sideshow, and that was kind of their signature piece, and still is kind of their signature piece. And they thought, you know, we should do a throne piece as kind of a tribute to that one and create our own signature piece. And you know, obviously they couldn't do Doctor Doom, so you know, they thought, okay, who are we going to do? And apparently immediately it was Magneto. There really was no other choice for them. It was this guy. He's an absolutely beloved character from the Marvel Universe, an absolute top tier villain. People were dying for a Magneto. He'd never really been done before in 1/4 scale. And so that part of it came really, really quick, and the rest of it kind of snowballed from there, and they just started throwing out these ideas like, you know, what if we had him sitting on this giant Sentinel hand as part of the throne? And it probably sounded like a crazy idea, but I mean, look how it turned out. It's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, look at this giant hand, all the texture and the, you know, the battle damage throughout, and how it looks fantastic. So creative. And then you got the sign from the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters under his feet, like he's just crushed and destroyed it. And then you got a piece of the Blackbird jet, kind of the body of the jet off to the side of the throne here. I mean, this statue tells a story, and that's what I really, really love about it. I mean, a lot of people were kind of put off by having Magneto seated instead of kind of levitating, but I love the story that this tells. For me, it looks like a victorious and triumphant Magneto. He's accomplished his goal finally. It's such a great storytelling piece for me. Now you look at Magneto himself, and you got his suit, and as XM is sort of known to do, they do add kind of a modern twist to a lot of the comic book suits, but there's enough here to make it that signature Magneto look. Obviously the red and the purple. You got the collar around his collarbone there for the cape. The gloves and the boots. I like how they did that striped look around the gloves and boots with these straps and buckles. Very, very modern twist. A very unique modern twist to this piece. And I mentioned the levitating Cerebro helmet. That might be my favorite part about the whole statue. It's such a creative design. I mean, XM Studios really, I think, outdid themselves with this piece, and it just looks fantastic. So number 2, love the design on this statue. Alright guys, before we move on to number 1 of the countdown here, we're going to just touch on one of the more controversial subjects about this statue, and that is its scale, or its overall size of the figure. And you know, you really got a lot of people that are convinced that it's way too small and it does not look good next to other statues. And then you've got the other side of things where people say, well, it looks totally fine to me. It's clearly 1/4 scale. What's the problem? And you know, really, when the statue's by itself, I think there's absolutely no problem with it. It looks appropriately sized, and people have come over and looked at this statue at my house and all left thinking, it looks fine to me. What's the problem here? Well, when you set this statue down to other 1/4 scale pieces, something doesn't quite add up. It doesn't quite look right. It's almost like it shrinks before your eyes. And so I wanted to dig down a little bit deeper and get into, you know, why is that the case? And so what I did is I took this statue and compared it to 2 others in my collection. I took Scorpion from XM Studios, and I took the new Daredevil from Sideshow Collectibles, the one by Daniel Bell. And I took those characters because, number 1, they are listed as right around the same height as Magneto in the comics. They're all right around 6 feet tall. And number 2, for me, those 2 pieces pass the eye test, let's say. They both look appropriately sized. They look good to me. So I wanted to pick those 2 statues and compare how they look next to each other. And so what I did was I started off, I measured the total height, the bottom of the boot to the top of the head. And you'd probably be a little bit surprised to hear this. Maybe it's because of the pose a little bit of Magneto. He's leaned back. You don't really quite see how tall he really is. But they're all right around that 18 to 18.5 inch mark. So it's appropriately scaled for a 6 foot tall human. And so they're all very, very close to each other. So it's not that. The height is there. So then I checked, okay, the length of the legs. Maybe it's the legs that are the problem. Again, within millimeters of each other, very, very close. I checked the lengths of the arms. Again, very, very close. And you can see, here's the two forearms of the Scorpion and Magneto right there. I mean, to me, even right in front of my face, they look very, very close to each other. So I don't think it's that. So then I started checking the bulk. I measured around the quads, around the biceps. Magneto is starting to get a little bit smaller in that department. He's a little bit more slim and slender than those other two guys, but still pretty close. I don't think that's what the problem is for me. I think I narrowed it down to two specific things. Number one, the feet. Magneto's feet are noticeably smaller than those other statues, about almost a centimeter shorter from heel to toe than Daredevil and Scorpion. So I think that might be lending partly to that look of him being smaller. But I think the most important thing for me anyways is the head size. Magneto's head is noticeably smaller than those other two statues. And I'll show you, you put Daredevil's head next to Magneto. And, for me, I see a noticeable difference there. You got Scorpion, same thing. Magneto's head a little bit smaller than Scorpion's. It's visually, you can see that. But when you put these two together, I think they look pretty good next to each other. So I think that is the number one thing that's lending to that look of Magneto being undersized. So I went one step further just to see, is the head too small or is it just smaller than those other ones? And so I took some measurements around, the length of the face, the circumference of the head, and compared it to the normal human ranges. And it's still a normal sized human head. It's on the lower percentiles, but it's still within that normal range. So I can pretty confidently say this is a 1/4 scale statue of a normal human being, but he's just, a little bit smaller in some of the proportions, the feet, the head, and a little bit slimmer than those other pieces. So I think that is what's doing it, but definitely it's a 1/4 scale piece. All right, so one more last thing before we move on to number one in the countdown here. I wanted to show you guys, all you guys out there who say that Magneto's 1/5 scale, what an actual 1/5 scale statue looks like next to Magneto. Now this is the Daredevil comiquette from Sideshow, the body, and you can see there is a clear size difference here. I mean, I could almost sit Daredevil down in his lap like a kid with Santa Claus at Christmas. It's that much of a difference here visually. And even the head, and I mentioned Magneto's head is even a little bit on the small side for 1/4 scale. Compare that to this Daredevil, and there is a clear size difference there. So Magneto is absolutely not 1/5 scale, so let's just put an end to that right now. All right, guys, we've arrived. Number one, my most favorite thing about this statue is really just the legend that is Magneto. I mean, think back to around the time that this statue came out. If you wanted a superhero statue, you really only had one company you could go to get it. And, at that time, edition sizes were enormous. The prices were going up through the roof. Now, I know we'd all like to jump back to those prices now, but at the time they were really high. And, the quality control on those statues was really going down. What you were getting for your money was not the best at that time. And collectors were getting fed up with it. So along comes this company out of Singapore that says, we're going to have low edition sizes. We're going to have the best packaging in the business. We're going to have meticulous quality control. We're going to give you a nice, heavy, quality feeling statue with an amazing design. And people were like, okay, this sounds amazing. So, and then you take the pre-order process for the statue. It really kind of dropped out of nowhere. So people were like, oh, I really want this Magneto. I can't wait to get it. When's the pre-order coming? Boom, here it is. And it sold out like instantaneously. And a lot of people were left out in the cold and were not happy about that. There was outrage at the time. So people automatically, there had a big crowd of people that were not pleased because you know, they weren't used to this at the time. Then XM made a few changes during the production process. The helmet, how the helmet fits on the head, they changed that a little bit. They changed the cape here around his right foot. Originally it came out under his foot. Then they actually cut that off because some people were saying, well, it doesn't make sense for him to be stepping on his cape. So they changed it during the production process. Again, some people were outraged. How dare they change something? I already paid for it. I can't believe they changed it. I hate it now. You know, so there were just so many things about this piece. And then finally, about 6 months later, it starts showing up on people's doors, and it absolutely met all the hype. It had, like they said, amazing packaging. It felt heavy. It felt like a high quality piece. Great paint, you know, excellent design. I mean, everything about it, everything they promised about it came to life, and this statue almost instantaneously tripled or quadrupled in value overnight. People were paying thousands and thousands of dollars for this statue, and really they still are paying quite a bit more than retail for it. But I mean, the whole story around the statue, and still to this day, almost 4.5 years later, people still argue over this statue. So either it's kind of a love or hate sort of thing, but I love this statue. I love the whole story around it. And, you know, really for me, this statue is what kind of turned the hobby around. I think what we're getting since that time is so much better looking than what we were getting before. And there's other factors to that. There's the technology, the digital technology, 3D printing and all that. But I think this statue showed collectors that they could expect more. So the whole story around Magneto and the whole production process, and, you know, all the outrage and at the time, and still the fact that it's such a talk about statue, I love that about this piece. Alright guys, so we're going to wrap up the review here. I know it's been a little bit of a longer one, so hopefully you've stuck through the whole thing with me here. XM Studios Magneto, I think, is absolutely one of the classics of the hobby. I love the switch out parts that it comes with. I routinely switch them up to give a different look on the statue. I love the design. I mean, look at the Sentinel hand. It's just absolutely amazing. Such a creative idea from XM Studios. And then the story, the legend around Magneto. I still love it to this day. Watching people argue over this piece, it's just amazing. Really, really a great statue from XM though. I think still one of their top statues even to this day, even though it was one of their first ones. Really, really a great piece from XM. And, you know, I'm going to get a little bit sappy on you guys here, but this statue really means a lot to me. It was the first XM Studios statue that I bought, and I never would have imagined that I would have got the chance to actually go to Singapore and meet these people, because I was like you, I plunked down a deposit with some stranger that I didn't know in Singapore at the time. And, I didn't know if I could trust the guys, but really, I've really become good friends with them over the years. I've had the chance to meet them. I've had the chance to visit their country. I've met so many people over there, not just from Singapore, but from all over the world that I still stay in touch with and consider friends. So this statue started all of that for me, and it's really means a lot to me for those reasons. So XM Studios Magneto, love the statue. Love the story behind it, and I love what it means to me personally. So it's a statue that's going to stay with me for a long, long time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. We're going to have more new stuff for you guys coming up soon, so stay tuned to the channel. Stay tuned to Shelf Space as well, where I host that show with Gina B and Charles Cecilia. We interview all kinds of people from around the hobby. So check out our channel and stay tuned to B Mother Reviews. We'll have more for you coming soon. Talk to you guys later.